What's going on? Um, I had this idea kind of like popping in my brain of leprosy colony and how this was an ancient form of quarantine of sorts, and it goes back as far as the Bible, where there were specific places allocated for unclean people to live separate away from people who didn't have the lep. And I remember watching this movie, I think it was the newer remake of Spartacus, and his family got sent to the leprosy colony, and they didn't have leprosy colony, and it was like, the dude was like, oh my God, they sent my family to a death sentence, basically. And then all of a sudden, it kind of clicked inside of my brain about how, in a way, okay, this is hypothetical. This is just a hypothetical situation here. All right. It would seem like in the movie as if the dude was targeted politically, because I think I can't remember the exact plot of the movie, but it seemed like it was some kind of political thing where he had a family member who was a radical, and because they did something, the rest of his family got targeted by the Roman officials at the time. But so basically, that's a very torturous, cruel, unusual punishment. Very cruel, because it would have been, at least if they were just dead, it would have been still tragic. But instead, yet while alive, they put them with sick people, knowing they would live for a long time and then be and also, that's another thing. That's a way to make someone, you can make them a biological weapon, because if you love someone, you might be tempted to go rescue or contact them, and if they've been infected with a real deal dangerous contaminant like the lep was back then, before the advancements in medical technology, it was almost like a freaking death sentence, and it was a death sentence, actually. But what I'm saying here is how historically they have weaponized people that are sick. I've even seen that they would shoot corpses infected with the plague over the top of walled castles, and I wonder if ergot has ever been used as has been weaponized in history, that unknowing to us yet. But basically, the thing about it is, in America, people don't realize that there has been concentration camps used a few times in our soil already. Once was the first was the natives, when they got put on the reservations before they got colonized. Those were stand-in for what you would call the concentration camp. They weren't called that yet, but those were the great granddaddy of the concentration camp. And it even said Hitler liked the American Indian extermination policy. And also, my very tribe was given smallpox or smallpox was introduced amongst the Indians by the Europeans, and mine in particular, it was the British, and it was for it was revenge for Fort Mishmiliac. And also, but at the same time, another one of our tribe, the Vanguard, the Western Vanguard, was out raiding other tribes, and they also contracted the smallpox they went into a camp to go and raid and get some revenge, and they went in there and they started attacking people, but they were wondering why, like, they weren't fighting back very hard, and it was really easy to freaking conquer them. It was because this tribe already got hit with the smallpox release. So it was here, maybe. Can we say the whole thing? Look, it was certain that the British gave the Indians the smallpox blankets, and this since they had any kind of immunity at all, it's almost like 100% successful contagion or contagiousness rate. So it was devastating. And in a way, that's the irony of life. Why the Bible says you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So on both hands, some of our customs they were violent. They were based on the old blood for blood, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth time. But Christ already came with the Bible by then, and it was time for that way to be done away with. So our people were kind of it was a violent time, and so some of the behaviors of the natives during that time were very violent. But it's not that the people themselves were necessarily violent. The times were just savage in their behaviors. And look, being blind to what the meaning of their language was, there's no way to get a proper context for anything. It's all speculative, and anything that I know about myself. When I'm going through a desperate, hard, dark time, my primary personality, the nice guy, gets stifled. And then the more just mere survival, look, day to day, one day at a time aspect of myself kind of goes into the forefront. So I can see from experience, when you're under duress, you're not in your right mind. So it's the real you, but it's not the real you. It's the real you under those circumstances. And if you take the person out of the circumstances, the primary human characteristics come back. The core personality comes back. But you have to tone it down in stressful situations. And you know what I mean? And it comes with its, you'll have like PTSDs from stuff like that. So you'll have residue inside your psyche of the memory of the time when you had to do that. Just like war vets have PTSD, and they hear a car muffler backfire, and then they duck and cover, for instance, stuff like this. And in a way, man, it's like also, okay, so if say you say if you're in a totalitarian society or a communistic society, they don't see you as a human. What you are is property of the state. It's like basically everyone is born a slave to the machine, the beast, to the politics, to whatever, man, it's like, you're born riding on the neck of a tiger, basically, and at any time it can just turn around and devour you. You know what I mean? So it's it's like man, what the heck was I gonna say, man? Anyway, so even in the Nazi concentration camps, they were trying to figure out a way to industrialize the human body into things like fuel. They were even trying to figure out a way to convert the teeth into something, the skin into leather. Of course, even sheeps can be sheared. Their hair can be used, like for inside of furniture for padding, for instance. Stuff like this, really messed up stuff. Like, look, in the Bible it says you sell a boy for wine and a little girl for shoes. And even we've come so far now where they look at you as if you're just really cattle, to be catalyzed and broke down and processed like that. It's really devaluing and cheapens the the quality of life. And like I was saying, in at least I don't think there was any mass extermination of Japanese during World War II when they threw them in the concentration camps. And these were American citizens. So you can't say it can't happen or never can happen, because it already has happened. And this situation here, they already have a lot of false positives. So there's one way in such a country, if there was a coup, say there was a coup and you didn't know it, and there was a takeover where like Nazi paperclip science have taken over the medical and science industry, let's just say like in Argentina, the boys of Brazil. They can use their citizenry because the Nuremberg Code says you cannot experiment or use biological weapons on people on foreign countries. But there's a clause in there. It doesn't say it in it, but on your own population, it is not illegal. So say that you're a dissident, right? And the government doesn't like you, and there has been programs to find people who don't go with the media supported status quo, the mainstream. They have gang stalker organizations that follow them. One of these programs was called COINTELPRO. But anyway, there was a movie called The Crazies, and it showed that they were locking people up because of a release of a disease that basically was giving people the zombie psychosis like 28 days later. But in the end, come to find out, it was all the freaking government did it on purpose. But anyway, what I'm saying is, so listen, this is also related in the TI program. Corporations and black budget projects can hire private contractors to test their new weapons on people from the public that are expendable, that are dissonant or disabled or are a political disenfranchised minority, for instance. And when I lived in Beecher, dude, I got hit with the LRAD, and I also got hit with some kind of pulse that hit my ear, and it made me frickin' dizzy, and I had to go it made me feel like I was gonna puke, and I had to go lay down and pass out for hours. So it seems I've already been hit with some kind of weapons test. And also, it seems right now there's a power grab because of the special executive type and special powers to the government. They can basically make us non-witting experimentees. And in Arkansas, they sprayed nuclear waste inside of the ventilation system in a Section 8 housing project. The government did that. They did the Tuskegee experiment, where they intentionally infected black populations, poor blacks populations, with syphilis, and then wouldn't cure them, and sat back and watched the deterioration of them for scientific purposes. So I'm sure these are the only ones that we have found out about. My grandma used to tell me that they used to Dow Chemical tested Agent Orange on the reservations. That's Dow Chemical. They released also DDTs into a small formerly slave population, like sharecrop community of low income black population in the South. They dumped the DTBs in the frickin' river where all these people are, in the creek, and all these people got sick for years and years. So you can't tell me they haven't done this already in the past. So I've already met people in real life who got hit with the false positive. There's also, they got these tracing apps that if you just have the wrong, the bad luck of coming, being in the same Bluetooth range as someone's phone, who was in the wrong range as someone's Bluetooth phone that potentially could have got around somebody who supposedly got it, that we don't know for sure. It's just all hearsay. they could potentially throw you into a quarantine zone, right? But let's say that this was a corrupt regime in a foreign country, a socialistic, communistic country, where you just had a post on your social media that the government just didn't like, and you could become a potential threat in the future. So they give you a false positive. Let's say almost like just like the roulette wheel. You know how you go to a roulette wheel place, and just when you're about to win, for some reason it just goes over the number that it looked like it was going to land on, which you were going to win, because they have some kind of trick mechanism to choose when it wins or loses. Just like, what if built into this whole thing, this mechanism, this test, that it was really just up to the person's discretion to say if it was positive or negative, and it was totally like really because they believe that you're going to become a political dissident. So you weren't sick, but they send you in a place which is a quarantine facility that there really are sick people. And now they say you already had it, but you weren't. But really, the scientists, just like the Tuskegee experiment or the Arkansas spray the industrial waste into the nuclear industrial waste into the ventilation systems to see the effect on the poor people who ask for government assistance. So government assistance gives you a free shower in the gas chamber because you had a headache. The government says, well, we're going to cure all your pain forever. And then they kick you into the fucking gas chamber. But this is my point about the very beginning statement of the leprosy colony used weaponized during a time of a cruel totalitarian regime, an occupation of a different nation, for instance. And how this is just historical little milestones of things, of ways it could go. And I'm just using science of the past, like the mad science that was mainstream science for somebody until it was discovered how oppressive and abusive and backwards and like straight up evil it was. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of questions like this should raise in us just for just for commentary and data point and background filler information. You know what I'm saying? Just for philosophical information. A leper colony, lazaret, leprosarium, or a lazar house, was historically a place to isolate people with leprosy. The term lazaretto, which is derived from the name of the biblical figure Saint Lazarus, and can refer to isolation sites, which were sometimes also called colonies, or places where lepers lived or were sent. So, under the guise of a quarantine type of a thing, in certain cases can be used as a place to funnel political dissident, or to take healthy and not so healthy people and put them through a weapons test. Because say this leprosy was caused by a weaponized strain, but the scientists who made it and released it, let's say through some island where they work on animals, you know what I'm saying? And then they're watching from remotely the public and how it's like kind of like Mr. Glass. If Mr. Glass got the job at a weapons a biodefense weapons testing lab, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, so if these known historical cases, like I would imagine, go to the asylums, and you probably have found there were probably many other people were weapons tested. And science used the science experiments unbeknownst but unbeknown to them, because it's one of the ways that in a communistic, totalitarianistic society, like ominous Aina with the social credit or system, and they also like look, they can see your body parts as weapons tests, and also like they did experiments on in Otzi experiments to see if they can make people have blue eyes and green eyes, and also the part of the making the they were put human they put bovine growth hormone inside of a pregnant woman, and you would have two babies in there. So that's the grandfather of the cloning program, was the twin programming, which was based on the Boys of Brazil movie scenario. Okay. Anyway, man, this is some deep shizzle, okay? And we're heading into deep shizzle hits the fan territory. And no one might not be coming to save us. There may be no shit hits the fan extraction for any of us regular folk. You know what I'm saying? But the elites will be heading to their bunkers and their freaking space stations. And who knows if they're not hopping through stargates into parallel dimensions with they lives. You know what I mean? At this point. But, and also, I will like to add this big freaking elephant in the shadow in this room, that the Nazis were heavy into the occult, okay? And they were channeling spirits from the ether and the underworld, okay? And from the ethereal realms, hell maybe potentially, but many of the people with the abduction scenario are in a medical type experimentation, cloning type, extracting, reproductive, being raped and molested and jabbed and look, getting your eyeball juice sucked out and getting a machine that's puking down your throat. You know what I'm saying? Things shoved up the bung. You know what I mean? And that is a very Nazi scientific, eugenic science, medical experimentation, extermination type, concentration, quarantine camp type of esque, where people are just being used and abused as meat suits and as DNA material extraction sites. And they're just, look, these people are crying and they don't want to be there, and they're being held against their will. And there's all these people, these cold, non-human like entities around the bed that's doing surgery on them. And you'll find the same thing now. Look, if you were a fly on the wall in some of these surgeries of people with like that their insurance sucks, you'll listen to these doctors and nurses talk down on them, just like it would be like you could plug it right next into a Nazi experiment medical facility and they would be identical. Only difference was they'd be speaking English here. And I wouldn't be surprised if before long it's not a subrequisite and prerequisite to speak Latin to become in any position of authority. That's the way we're going, to a neo-feudal, neo-technocratic feudal, weird matrix cloning type of a Terminator, cybernetic, transhumanistic, unnative, unnatural, of a dystopian situation. And I know all this stuff, this is like a lot, man. I'm blasting you like a fire hose. You're trying to get you to drink from the fire hose of information here, but look, it's kind of like that sometimes, man. The stuff's kind of all connected, dude, but you got to kind of get enough data points to connect the freaking dots. And then even you might have to take a step back at it and look at it and cross your eyes a little bit. And then it will kind of come into focus. You know what I mean? And then you'll know what you're looking at. But look, I can understand a lot of people might not be able to see how this all, how these things kind of interlap and interlock and intertwine these concepts. And once again, and this goes back to like the Nazis were a heavy paganistic society, and you look back, like you can look at the Mayans, and they were a very technologically advanced society for their time. And they also kind of took on this scientific experimentee. We can just dump on the poor and the people who don't live in the city, and we can drag them in here and frickin' cut their hearts out and literally bleed them and for our entertainment and for our religious rituals. This can happen, and the same thing basically happened in the freaking concentration camps in Nazi World War II, buddy, and in the Russian gulags and all that, man. I mean, look, these things have already happened, and I'm sure, and ominous, I know this probably has happened. It's probably already been covered up. That's why there's the big giant ghost cities over there, or either that they're just built. It's kind of like, look, you're building. It's kind of like in that movie Braveheart. Some of the crowds that you looked at in the movies, there was only like, for every one person, there was 10 cardboard cutouts to make it look like their army was bigger than it was. And maybe there's something to that effect going on, but I'm not sure. This is just a lot of conjecture and just based on historical accounts and situations that can all be validated and established that I'm basing what I was saying off of real historical content, dude, and factual background data points. So it's not as if my fears are based on irrational paranoia. It's just this has already happened already a few times over, and just because a lot of people aren't history buffs, that they might be unaware of it, or you might not have actual blood lineage to some of these historical tragic injustices. And so, look, if you don't remember and you don't remember the history, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to freaking hurt it, man, or to repeat it. And it's, you know what I'm saying? And it's better to have more lightning in the hand than thunder in the mouth. But if you're gonna, it's not to say that you should still have some thunder in the mouth. So you know what I'm saying? But anyway, I hope this is interesting. And this is some good data points, and maybe other peoples can dig a little deeper in their own time and do some PFR, pending further research. You know what I'm saying? One of my favorite subjects. But anyway, just to keep this managed down. You know me. I could talk forever. I could go on and on and on and be ridiculous and redundant and. I know, look, people ain't got the attention span like that. I mean, it's all good. So, like anything else I said, anything I'm saying, I'm pointing out, you always got to go back over it for yourself. Always. But I try to stick to the things that I know, the main gist of a data point. You know what I'm saying? And I try not to just shoot from the hip all the time. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just being lazy and you know what I mean? I mean, even though I'm pretty good at it, but it's like, it just for the sake of other people who can't follow so well. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a good time to sometimes slow it down for them, but I know there's a lot of other people out here who can definitely follow, and they're right here in the trench with me. So it's like but it's nice sometimes, when someone else comes in and re-articulates it, and it says the same thing but in a different way, so it touches a better audience. You know what I'm saying? And I'm freaking I'm down for all that, for letting our creative juices bounce off one another, and like it's kind of like a slingshot. That's like when like Marty McFly in Back to the Future, when he was holding on to the trunk on his skateboard, and actually when he let go of the car, he was going faster than the car. That's a slingshot. So we should kind of all assist one another in that sort of way, and like let the next guy boomerang off of what we did, so that we have a more uh, a more of an impact, a better effect, a more full circle beneficial effect. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, man, take care. Peace out.